Hey, what is good everyone, Chris here, welcome back to the channel. And today I decided to make a video for you based on the X-T3 that I recently bought, and I realized that a lot of people are having problems trying to dabble through the menus of the Fujifilm cameras. This is not much different than the X-T3, X-T2, X-T20, X-T30, X-T10 and so on and so forth, but there are things that you need to know, and setting this camera, just set it up and forget about it and not having to dabble through the menus all the time. It's good. So stay with me and I'm going to show you a few settings that you have to set and forget on your Fuji X-T3. I'm not going to get through all of them. If you want me to do that, that's going to be a long video, but I will do it for you. If you really want it, just put the comments in the box down below and let me know, and I will definitely do that for you. But today we're just setting up the most important ones. First, let's start with the image quality, the image size. These are the options that you have: large, medium and small. Also you can choose the aspect ratio. I'm definitely shooting in 3:2 because that's the most common aspect ratio, and you can crop and can do whatever you want, but you can shoot 16:9 or 1:1 if you're shooting for social media and stuff like that. Now another one very important is the image quality, and this it's for shooting JPEG and RAW. If you wanna go ahead and shoot JPEG, it's totally fine. I believe that RAW image gives you more and more mobility in terms of post processing, and also the camera reads the colors. The sensor reads the colors differently and also renders the colors differently, and you will be able to tweak them in post-processing more than you will be able to do it in RAW. So if you want to shoot JPEG, these two are for JPEG, fine and normal. One is for best quality, the other one is for a medium quality. Then it's fine JPEG plus RAW, normal JPEG plus RAW, and just RAW. I am not advising you to shoot just RAW because you won't be able to see the photos on some medias. For example, the iPadOS doesn't see raw photos only if we're going right here, only if you're shooting in uncompressed. If you're shooting in lossless compressed, you won't be able to preview the photo on the iPadOS. Probably the iOS is the same thing, I didn't try. This feature, like I said, it's all about the raw recording, how the camera registers the raw, uncompressed or lossless compressed. There is not a big difference between them except for the file size. The file size are bigger in the uncompressed, but in terms of what you can do with the raw in post-processing, it's pretty much the same. So this is just a preference for whatever you want to do. The film simulation, it's a setting that you can set anytime and not just set and forget, because it might depend on the scene that you're shooting based on whatever genre you're shooting and so on and so forth. The grain effect I'm usually keeping off because I'm not shooting JPEG, but if you're shooting JPEG and you want to have that film look, go ahead and set this whatever you want, weak or strong. It's gonna create a filming grain effect on your JPEGs. Like I said, I'm not shooting JPEG only, so for me the editing it's more important, and I can do that in post-processing if I want to. The dynamic range, again, you can leave it on auto. The white balance can be on auto. If you are an advanced user, you can set it up yourself. Fujifilm creates all these options for you to set it up. If you want to set the Kelvin by yourself, you can set up the color temperatures. You can also create presets for yourself. You can change this to daylight or shade or fluorescent, whatever it is, and also you can keep it on auto like I do, and even in auto you can have the option to change the tint a little bit. In the white balance, it's going to shift a little bit towards whatever you're going to shoot it. This is the white balance. Now these next four settings are very important. The highlight, the shadow tone, the color and the sharpness, they're important because maybe you want to have a flat image to edit, and these are actually affecting the raw image. So if you want to have a flat image, just set it up the way I did. I set it up the highlight tone to -2, the shadows to -2, and the colors to 0 because I don't want extra saturation in my photos. I can definitely go and set it up to -1, but I want to have a accurate representation of what I shot in terms of colors, and the sharpness to -2 because I don't want the camera to sharpen my images. I just want to have a flat image that I can work with. The noise reduction is set to 0. This is for JPEG only, so if you want to have a little bit of a noise reduction, you can set it up to +1, +2, +3. There are slight differences. It's like, let's say 15, 30, 45%, something like that, or maybe 10, 20. I'm not sure because I never used it. The long exposure noise reduction is always off in my camera because I don't care about having noise reduction made by camera even in the JPEGs. Also, the color space is set to sRGB, and this is the well accepted color space all over the web, and it's the one that you should be in. You can also set it up to Adobe RGB, but that is more complicated in terms of color rendition, and you have a little bit of wonky colors, and I'm advising you to use the sRGB for all your photos. The pixel mapping, it's not something that I'm dabbling with, and that is pretty much it with the image quality. Now for the autofocus and manual focus settings, let's jump to the second one, and I'm gonna show you exactly why. I always have this one set in all. You can set it up in white tracking or zone or single point, but I'm setting it up in all because, and now I'm going back to the focus area. Now if you're trying to set the area, you can use your dial on the back of your camera and choose between the focus modes. You can have single point and zone and area and tracking, all of them very easy to modify. If you're setting your AF mode in single point and go into the focus area, you only will be able to change the focus point wideness, and that's not something that I want. The AF custom settings, this is a separate video that I want to make because there's so many things to talk. I am usually keeping on standard or set to, which is ignore obstacles and continue to track subject, because I'm shooting street photography and I don't want the camera to jump from a subject or to another one, or if things are moving fast through my frame, I don't want the camera to pick up on those moving things and just stay on the subject that I focused on. Now the store AF mode by orientation, this is a little bit debatable. I'm keeping it on off because I don't want the focus point to move when I'm turning the camera. I want to keep it in the same place. The fact that I'm composing a shot on portrait from landscape doesn't mean that I want to change the subject. I have the same subject, but I'm just trying to change the orientation, so I don't want to change the focus point and jump. For example, if you have the focus point here in landscape and you're turning your camera in portrait mode, it's going to jump all the way up here, so that's a little bit cumbersome, so I'm keeping it off. If you want to keep it on, it's up to you. The AF point display on and off, I'm keeping it off. Now the number of autofocus points is something that you need to understand. The more you have, the harder it will be to move your autofocus point all over the screen to grab the focus that you want on the subject that you want. The less autofocus points, the bigger the autofocus point tracker is going to be, so it's going to be easier for you to move that point. So I'm keeping it on 91. You can keep it to 325. It's just up to you. The pre-AF for me, it's always off because I don't want the camera to drain battery fast trying to focus on things that I don't want to. And what I mean is that if you're holding your camera to your on your belt or on your neck, it's gonna continuously pre-AF to have to make sure that when you're grabbing it and putting on your eye, it already knows what to focus on and it already has focus. I think this is a useless feature, but it might be useful for, you know, shooting sports, for example. If you're keeping your camera all the time on your eye and moving, trying to frame a shot, the camera is going to focus all the time, every frame, and that will help you have the autofocus fast and reliable. The AF illuminator, it's the LED bulb on the front or whatever it is that pops up when you're shooting in low light, trying to help you focusing faster. For me, it's not reliable and I'm not using that ever. Most of the Fuji cameras, the newer ones, have face and eye detect, and this is very important if you want to keep your autofocus on face on and eye off. You can do that. You can also use it on face on and eye auto, so every time it detects an eye, it's gonna jump straight onto the eye. It's very good for portraits. Also, you can use a face on and right eye and left eye, and use this off. I usually keep it off because when I'm shooting street photography, the camera jumps, the autofocus jumps from a face to another, and I don't want that. I want to keep my subject in focus all the time, so I'd rather have just a normal focus point and move it on the subject that I want to shoot, and that for sure is not gonna change, and this will helps me more. So if you want to shoot portraits, and if you are shooting your kid or something like that, the face on and eye auto, it's the best setting. The autofocus plus manual focus is on, which means that every time I'm autofocusing, I can tweak it a little bit using the manual focus dial or ring on my lens. That is very helpful, especially if you have lenses that have a little bit of a back focus or front focus. And it's very helpful using the next one, which is the manual focus peaking. If you're shooting manual focus, this will help you focus faster. The focus peaking, it's that red light that helps you see exactly where you're focusing. Also, you have the option of a digital split image in color, and they will create that more like a rangefinder split image, and you'll see exactly where you're focusing. And also the standard one that will just zoom in and help you focus closer. I'm using focus peaking because it's very reliable, and I'm actually the focus peaking on the Fuji cameras works very well. The focus check is off for me. You can have it on. That will every time you're manual focusing and you're pressing half of the shutter button, you will check the focus and see if the subject that you are trying to focus is in focus, and you will confirm where the autofocus point turned to green. The interlock spot AE and focus area, it's very helpful if you're doing spot metering, because it will tell the camera what you want to expose in that spot, what part of that spot you want to expose. For me, it's on, but I'm not using it because I'm rarely using spot metering. The instant AF is set up to autofocus singular because that will improve the autofocus, especially when you're shooting and tracking subjects, and then for some reason it stops the autofocus. It's going to work faster because the instant AF is set to single, and any camera shoots faster in single autofocus than continuous. Also, the depth of field it's set to pixels. You can set this one to film format basis. I am not sure exactly how this works, but it will show you the depth of field in pixels and not in that old SLR format that you have basically a scale of how the depth of field looks. Now the release focus priority, this is very important. Mine are both set on release because I rather shoot the photo even if it's not in perfect focus, and not wait for the camera to focus and then release the shutter. But if you're shooting portraits, I think most important is to set this one to focus, both of them, or just the one that you're shooting, because that will definitely help you shoot the photos that are perfectly in focus. And if you're shooting, let's say, corporate, and there is no emotion on the face of your subjects, that is helpful. You won't have to shoot thousands of photos to have one in perfect focus. This will create, and hopefully it's going to be reliable to create an image that it's perfectly in focus. And the last one, it's the touchscreen mode, which I have off. I use my smartphone for touchscreen, and this is a function that you can use here as well. So you can have it in shot or autofocus or area or off. I'm trying to keep it off all the time to preserve battery more and more. So guys, this is pretty much it in terms of photography and Fuji X-T3, setting up the image quality and the autofocus. Like I said, the next one is going to be based on videography and how you can shoot a video with this camera and what settings do you need and how to use them. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like these videos. Like I said, there are going to be more and more about this camera and about Fuji cameras that I'm using, and also about photography and tech, because that's what we're talking on this channel. Share these videos with your friends to create this community and give them a thumbs up. It helps a lot, and I don't know how to emphasize this more. Please give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you like like, hit that thumbs down button, press it twice, and also put your comments in the box down below and let me know how you setting up your Fujifilm X-C3, and I will definitely see you in a bit.